All right, so today we're doing a deep dive into the wisdom of Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, fantastic choice.
Yeah, and you know how we always talk about that feeling of searching for meaning in life, like trying to figure out who we are in this whole crazy world?
Yeah.
And how sometimes it's like life just feels like one giant problem that we're all trying to solve.
It can definitely feel that way sometimes. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Tolle has some seriously interesting perspectives on this whole thing.
Okay.
He's got this way of like reframing those everyday struggles and helping us see them in a new light.
I like that.
Yeah. And he starts by talking about the horizontal dimension of life.
The horizontal dimension.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of that before?
I mean, not in those terms.
But go on. Okay. So it's basically like being completely caught up in the day-to-day stuff.
Okay, I can see that.
So it's like being chained to your to-do list. You know, you're constantly thinking about the next thing you have to do or stressing about what's coming up next week.
Right, or even getting totally caught up in like relationship drama or work stuff.
Exactly. It's like we're constantly moving from one problem to the next, and it can feel so heavy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what Tolle says about that? He says that carrying the weight of yourself through life is a terrible fate.
Oh, I like that quote.
Yeah, it's a powerful one.
Yeah.
And he's not talking about like your physical body, you know.
Right. It's more about the mental and emotional baggage we carry around.
Exactly. It's like all those thoughts and worries, our past experiences, our insecurities, all that stuff that makes up what he calls our form identity.
Our form identity. Okay, I've never heard that term before, but I like it.
It's basically all the labels and stories we tell ourselves about who we are, you know, and we cling to them so tightly.
It's like we think those labels define us, but they really don't, do they?
Exactly. And that's where the problem comes in, because we end up carrying all that baggage around with us everywhere we go.
So it's like our form identity is weighing us down, keeping us stuck in that horizontal dimension of life.
Precisely.
So we're lugging around all this baggage, this form identity, and it's kind of weighing us down, right? But how do we lighten the load? How do we get out of that feeling of being trapped?
Well, that's where Tolle's idea of the vertical dimension comes in.
Vertical dimension. Okay, you're going to have to explain this one.
It's like, imagine you're on a roller coaster, right? You could keep your eyes closed the whole time, just bracing yourself for every twist and turn.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Right. But you could also open your eyes, look around, see the whole park, the sky, everything. Experience the ride in a totally different way.
Okay, I see what you're getting at.
Yeah, so the vertical dimension, it's not about literally escaping your life, but shifting your perspective, like on that roller coaster.
So it's about opening our eyes and connecting with something bigger than ourselves, something beyond all those day-to-day problems.
Exactly. And Tolle says the key to accessing it is through present moment awareness.
See, now that's where I tend to check out.
What do you mean?
Well, when I hear present moment awareness, I start thinking meditation retreats, chanting monks, you know, not exactly my scene.
I hear you. But Tolle's not talking about some far-off enlightenment thing. It's much simpler than that.
Okay, so how do you actually do it then?
He asks, what problem do you have right now? Because honestly, we're usually either stuck in the past or freaking out about the future, right? We rarely just exist in the now.
Oh, 100%. I am the queen of overthinking, always stuck in my own head.
And that's exactly what he's saying we need to break free from. The present moment, that's where the peace is.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess. But how do we actually make that shift then? How do we go from constantly thinking to just being?
Tolle has this really simple but powerful suggestion. He calls it engaging the senses without labeling.
Without labeling, what's that supposed to mean?
So like instead of looking at a tree and thinking, oh, a tree.
Yeah.
You just experience it, the rough bark, the sunlight through the leaves, the wind, you know.
So really paying attention, being present in the moment, like it's the only thing that exists.
Exactly. And you can do it anytime, anywhere. That first sip of coffee, the feeling of a warm shower, really listening to music, all those little moments we usually rush through.
Wow, when you put it like that, it seems so obvious.
It's about finding those opportunities to reconnect with the present moment and tap into that peace that Tolle's always talking about.
It's like hitting the reset button on our brains, right? Instead of getting swept away by all the thoughts and worries.
Exactly. And the more we practice, the easier it gets.
You know, it's funny. I was reading something the other day about how our brains are basically hardwired to focus on the negative stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like it's some kind of leftover survival mechanism from our caveman days.
Makes sense, though, right? Always got to be on the lookout for danger.
Totally. So it's like we have to work extra hard to shift our focus to the positive, to really appreciate those simple moments of peace.
It's true. Our brains are powerful, but sometimes they can be our own worst enemy.
Totally. But learning to engage our senses like that without all the mental chatter, it's like giving ourselves a break from the caveman brain. Okay, but what about relationships? Because, like, we can be present and all, but that doesn't magically make difficult people disappear,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Well, Tully talks about this thing called the pain body. Basically, all the emotional baggage we're carrying from past experiences.
Oh, so like everyone's got their own invisible suitcase full of oaf.
Exactly. All those old hurts, insecurities, resentments, and sometimes without even realizing it, we start trying to unpack that suitcase onto the people around us.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Like, instead of dealing with our own stuff, we end up projecting it onto others.
It's not always intentional, of course, but it happens all the time. Like, think about a time when someone said or did something that really triggered you.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
And maybe they didn't even mean anything by it, but it hit a nerve because of something from your past, right?
Yeah, or even something you're insecure about in that moment.
Exactly. So it's not really about them at all, you see. It's our own pain body reacting.
Okay, so then how do we stop taking everything so personally? How do we stop ourselves from both unpacking our baggage on others and letting them unpack theirs on us?
Honestly, awareness is the biggest step. Just realizing that everyone's walking around with their own pain body changes things.
Oh, for sure. It's like that saying, hurt people hurt people.
Exactly. It allows for so much more compassion, both for them and for ourselves.
So instead of immediately getting defensive or taking it personally, we can try to see it as their pain body talking.
Right. Don't believe everything you think. Our thoughts and emotions can be so powerful, especially when they're coming from that place of pain. But they're not always the truth.
It's like choosing to see the person, not just the baggage they happen to be carrying around.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But what about boundaries? Like, compassion is great and all, but I'm not going to let someone just walk all over me because of their pain body.
Oh, absolutely not. Boundaries are crucial. And that's not about shutting people out or being mean. It's about protecting your own well-being while still having compassion for where they're coming from.
So it's like creating a safe space where everyone can show up authentically, maybe even unpack some of that baggage, but on their own terms.
Right. And that's where real change happens, right?
Yeah.
It's not about achieving some perfect state of peace and harmony all the time. It's about navigating the ups and downs with a little more awareness, a little more compassion, and a whole lot more grace.
It's funny, when we first started talking about this whole essence identity thing, it seemed kind of abstract. But the way you've broken it down, it actually feels really practical, like something we can all start applying today.
That's the beauty of Tolle's work, right?
Mm.
It's profound and down to earth at the same time.
Totally. And he reminds us that the answers are often right there in front of us, in the stillness, in the present moment, in the way we choose to see ourselves and interact with the world.
It really is all about the now, isn't it?
It really is. And on that note, why don't we leave our listeners with that thought? How would your life be different if you lived each day as the ocean, experiencing the waves without letting them sweep you away? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.